Welcome once again to Chelan County Connection. Randy Roadz here, Lisa Dowling there. Lisa, let's welcome you to the show today.
Thank you so much, Randy. I'm very happy to be here.
And what is your actual job title with Chelan County?
So I am a natural resource specialist, and I work with our natural resource department, and that is kind of an umbrella across all things plant, animal, soil, water, air related.
We have a crown jewel right here in Chelan County. It's called Lake Chelan, and that's going to be a big part about what we're discussing today. What's your assessment of the impact that Lake Chelan has for us?
Well, Lake Chelan is quite an amazing feature for us to get to have right here in our backyard. It is the longest and deepest lake in Washington State. And it's really unique in that it's kind of split up into two distinct subbasins that's separated by a narrow sill that was formed by glaciers, and that we call the Narrows near Manson. And what's really cool about that is that the Wapato Basin is the smaller basin around Manson and Chelan, where a lot of our recreation activity happens and most of our developed watershed is. Then we have the Lucerne Basin that is almost 3 times longer and 4 times deeper and contains 92% of the total water volume. And that is in a protected watershed that's owned almost entirely by the Forest Service and the National Park Service. And what's really great about that is that that protected watershed around the Lucerne creates kind of a protective layer for our water quality in Lake Chelan. So for many decades now, we've been noticing really stable trends in the way that our water quality has been shaping up over the years, which is fantastic news. But in recent years, we have seen some of these changes that have happened, especially in the Wapato subbasin, like increasing land use changes as we see development increasing, the construction of a dam, introduction of invasive species, increased tourism and recreational use. All of those things do cause impacts within the lake. And so myself here at the county and our partners with the Lake Chelan Watershed Planning Unit have been investing significantly in trying to learn a little bit more about what those risks are and how we can manage them in a more effective way.
Well, Lisa, Chelan County has started a pilot program this month, and we're dealing with aquatic invasive species. Let's go ahead and kind of describe what they are and what kind of impact they can have.
Perfect. So an aquatic invasive species is either a freshwater or marine plant or animal that is now living in an environment that it's not native to. And perhaps it was introduced to that environment on purpose, or it hitched a ride there inadvertently. But now that it is there, it's making a really good living. And sometimes that's at the expense of our native plant and animal species. And occasionally, it can also change the way that ecosystem functions as a whole. So that ability for it to cause harm, either in an actual sense or a potential harm in the future, is one thing that would cause us to have concerns around a specific non-native species in an aquatic environment.
Say, Lisa, what about this assessment we were going to touch on?
Yeah, so way back in 2020, which was right around the time that I started my position here at the county, we completed a habitat vulnerability and suitability analysis for aquatic invasive species at Lake Chelan, which is just a mouthful of words to basically say an aquatic invasive species assessment. And what we learned from that was that there is a lot of gaps in our understanding around the impact that aquatic invasive species has within our lake and the potential risks there. And it also changed the way that we understood the risk for invasive mussels to occur within the lake and what the subsequent harm may be. So prior to this assessment being completed, we had thought that the risk for invasive mussels like quagga and zebra mussels was relatively low because Lake Chelan has a very low productivity and the conditions there are kind of at the very low range of what you would think suitable habitat is for these invasive mussels. But following that report, we understood that not only is there suitable habitat in Lake Chelan, but there's also local conditions that might create hotspots, essentially, that are very favorable for establishment for these mussels. And unfortunately, those tend to be right in the same areas where we have a lot of watercraft usage happening. So that really bird dogged a big effort on our end to try to research more, write some grants, get some funding, and try to reduce that risk of quagga zebra mussel establishment in Lake Chelan.
Well, our guest this time out on Chelan County Connection, Lisa Dowling with Chelan County Department of Natural Resources. Can we focus in just real quick on which species you're most concerned with?
Absolutely. So when we talk about different aquatic invasive species, there's a bunch that are known to occur within Lake Chelan, and we're interested in monitoring those and trying to manage them as well. Notably, we have Asian clams, Chinese mystery snails. Those likely came here early on with settlers as a food source. We have Eurasian milfoil and curly leaf pondweed that probably hitched a ride here, and a few others too. But those are some contenders that we look at that we know occur within the lake. When we talk about what our most urgent concern is, though, those are the species that are not known to occur within the lake, but that are spreading apart across the West at alarming rates and causing catastrophic impacts in the water bodies that they infest. And quagga and zebra mussels, or QZ mussels for short, you may see, are our greatest concern for Lake Chelan. In that assessment, they looked at what potential impacts we might see should those mussels become established. And both the environmental and economic impacts are pretty staggering. From an environmental standpoint, what quagga zebra mussels do is they feed on tiny little zooplankton and phytoplankton, and in that feeding frenzy, they just kind of wipe out that bottom of the food web that can starve out sport fish and other little minnow fish. So it can cause that kind of disruption in the food chain. But they also have an incredible filtering capacity, which means that in that feeding frenzy, they can bioaccumulate metals and other harmful materials, which is a risk for human health consumption because our waterfowl species and other larger fish species can become contaminated. So both of those are concerns from an environmental standpoint. From an economic standpoint, they can reproduce prolifically and really bung up and foul up all kinds of infrastructure. So there was an economic projection done looking at what would happen if these mussels got into Lake Chelan or the Columbia River, and just the cost in terms of trying to deal with the hydroelectric dams, irrigation intakes, docks, and other related infrastructure was estimated at about $600 million per year. Now, if you want to look at loss of tourism and recreation dollars, you want to add a few, tens of millions of dollars to that estimate as well. So we're looking at something that has the potential to have a very large impact to our county and our state.
Now, Lisa, as I understand it, Chelan County has launched a voluntary mobile watercraft inspection program. What are the details on that?
So that is correct. So this whole program was designed to fill some of those gaps in our knowledge that were identified in that assessment. And so what we're hoping to do is to collect information about watercraft user data for Lake Chelan and just engage the public, especially the watercraft users in Lake Chelan, around the notion of implementing clean, drain, dry and the need to stop the spread of aquatic invasive species. But what we're doing is we've hired a seasonal staff team that's operating out of a trailered unit, and they're rotating around high-use marinas in Lake Chelan from May all the way through October. And these folks are going to be out there offering voluntary watercraft inspections that can be either upon entry or exit. And should they intercept any boats that are infested, we can provide courtesy decontamination services as well. A lot of these watercraft users that are coming from other places may have already hit some checkpoint stations along the way. We're happy to be a part of that larger network. And if we inspect them before they leave, they can let the mandatory checkpoint stations know that they've already participated in an inspection. And we can just help them make sure that they are being compliant with clean, drain, dry, which is incredibly important for reducing the risk.
Now, Lisa, where will the trailers be? What hours are they going to be operational?
So we're rotating around 25-mile State Park, Lake Chelan State Park, Lakeshore Marina, and Mill Bay Marina in Manson as our full inspection stations. We're also visiting the Riverwalk Park. That's the PUD launch. We'll be doing kind of a modified version there that'll be a hybrid of complimentary inspections and also just an info booth trying to spread information around clean, drain, dry, and aquatic invasive species. And every weekend they'll be at a different marina, and those will be they'll kind of rotate through those same 5 marinas all summer long. And they'll be out there Friday through Sunday for the most part.
And it's kind of a mission statement within the mission statement: clean, drain, dry. And just real quick, about 30 seconds on why that's so vital.
That is incredibly vital because these little quagga zebra mussels, when they're in their earliest life stage, they are just a tiny little microscopic organism that is basically unseen to the naked eye and can exist in a small little puddle of water in the bottom of your boat or even on like a damp life jacket. So really making sure that your boat has been drained entirely, everything has been wiped off, nothing is clinging to the outside of it, and that it is thoroughly dry before you launch it into another water body. It's critically important to stop the spread. That's true for quagga zebra mussels. That's also true for a lot of these other invasive species. With milfoil, all it takes is a tiny little plant fragment dropping into the right water. Those things are designed to be able to take root and take off from a growth perspective. So doing your part to make sure that your boat is clear of all debris and material, nothing foreign is hanging off the outside of the boat and the trailer, anything that enters into the lake, and then making sure that everything is drained, there's no standing water in there, and then thoroughly dried out is huge. And to help aid in that effort, earlier this year, we were able to secure a kind of new, very cool, innovative, clean, drain, dry piece of infrastructure for the city of Chelan. So watercraft users that are out there fairly soon will find this, it's called a CD3 waterless cleaning system installed at the Lakeshore Marina near Don Morris Park. And it is super cool. It has a shop vac in it and all the tools and equipment needed that a watercraft owner would need to be able to fully clean, drain, dry his boat. And it'll provide information about proper watercraft practices as well as aquatic invasive species. And we got this pretty nice piece of equipment through a donation and a grant program with Wildlife Forever. And the city of Chelan rose up and agreed to take that donation. And we're going to help make sure that the minimal operation and maintenance are completed because we feel like that's an incredible resource. It's one of those, if you provide them with the tools, these folks will use them. So we hope to help give boat owners what they need to implement clean, drain, dry.
Lisa Dowling with the Department of Natural Resources of Chelan County, our guest on Chelan County Connection. Lisa, how do you think it's going so far?
It is going smashingly. We have been just so encouraged and optimistic by the response within the local community. From the town hall we did last December, all of the enthusiasm that came out of that event, we've seen there on the marinas. Our team has already inspected well over 100 boats just in being operational for 2 weekends, and just had a lot of really pleasant conversations and interactions. A lot of boat owners, again, we're kind of standing on the shoulders of giants, and that these things have been happening in other places throughout the West for a long time. So not everybody is new to the game, and they're really happy to see this happening in Lake Chelan, especially residents that understand the threat to the lake. They love to see action being taken to protect that asset for this community. So we've been really pleased. It's been great.
Lisa, what would make this pilot program a success for you?
Well, I think, hopefully in the long term, we would like to see some ability to bring mandatory inspections to Lake Chelan. We understand that that is required to actually effectively reduce the risk of quagga zebra mussel establishment. But before we can really have that conversation, we need to understand more about how we could tailor a program like that to fit the unique needs of Lake Chelan, and not just the lake, but the people living in and around there. So, some of the ideas that we've talked about are offshore sites that we could do inspections that might protect both Lake Chelan and other waters within our county, but make it so that locals could continue to launch their boat on the lake without the need to go through that inspection process. There's still a lot of ideas that we're floating around, but really the interest here is trying to collect information from this community so that we can inform what a future program might look like that can both reduce the risk for Lake Chelan, but also work in tandem with the local community in a way that supports everybody's lifestyle and unique culture that we've grown to love in Chelan and Manson.
Well, Lisa, we have a big boating weekend ahead of us. Memorial Day weekend. Are the boaters going to be able to see the trailers out this weekend?
Absolutely. I believe we will be at Riverwalk Marina this weekend. Given how busy it is, they may be focused more on just engaging with the public. One of our big things is we definitely don't want to cause any kind of traffic congestion, but if folks are already waiting to launch, they may come tap on your window and chat you up for a few minutes. And just looking forward to hoping everybody is safe and having fun and remembering to clean, drain, dry their boat.
Lisa, if someone doesn't own a boat, is there any way they can jump in and get involved in this process?
That's an excellent question, and one that I found myself asking as somebody who doesn't speak boat and doesn't come from a family that owned boats. When I first got into this with Keep It Blue, I wondered, how is this relevant for me and what can I do? And what I learned is that everybody has something that they can contribute to protecting Lake Chelan. If you're at all interested in volunteering for this effort, I really recommend that you reach out to Keep It Blue Lake Chelan, and that's our public education campaign that we have running. Our website is online. You can contact us there or through social media. You can get out there and chat with boat owners and help do inspections if you're interested. You can run booths at events. You can help us behind the scenes. Really, whatever your skill set is, we can plug you in, because even if you don't own a boat, if you enjoy being in and around Lake Chelan or having clean drinking water or enjoying all of the vibrant agriculture that comes out of the Chelan watershed, or just the intrinsic value of this resource, it relates to you, and we all need to do our part to protect it. It certainly takes a village, and we would be happy to welcome anybody into that village. So please do reach out.
Fantastic. Well, you see the website right on the screen in front of you here on Chelan County Connection. Lisa, any big plans for you this Memorial Day weekend? Are you going to be working, recreating? What's on tap for you?
Oh, probably a little bit of both. Little column A, little column B, probably trying to keep cool, making sure we're keeping it safe.
All right. Lisa Dowling with the Chelan County Department of Natural Resources. Lisa, thank you for your time. So very nice to meet you. And thanks again for being our guest today on Chelan County Connection.
Randy, thank you so much for this opportunity. I look forward to meeting you again one day.